Okay, and we're live. Hello everyone. This is me, Abon, and a guest, uh, Slick James Johnson. I don't know if you want me to call you Slick or James. Um,
That's fine. Whatever. James is fine if you
okay.
want
Uh,
to cut it short.
um, like I saw you do a video, two videos actually. Right after the weird Globebusters interview with Nathan Oakley, and things just went awkward. And but I think we've seen weird things before, right? I mean, we're flat earthers, so things are probably just weird all the time for us. So, do you want to kind of give us an intro of like um, where you're from, how you kind of got into flat Earth, what type of other rabbit holes you've kind of gone down, and all this other stuff?
Sure. I'll try to keep it concise as possible. Go way back to around 1998, 1999. That's when they first came up with the moon landing. That being a hoax. That came on television. So I saw that on television, and that's when I first got introduced to things that we're told that possibly wasn't the case. So it started there. So long story short, zoom all the way up to about a couple years ago when Flat Earth started coming up in my feed. So I saw it in the feed and I said, this has got to be, this can't be for real. But what I decided to do, I said, you know what, I'm going to look into this because I don't want to be the type of person to just blow things off and say, this is nothing but crap. I said, I'm going to take it seriously and look into it and see what it's about. I mean, it can't hurt, right?
Yeah.
So I looked into it. And once I looked into it, I was really surprised. I was like, wow, this is not as foolish as I thought. So after some time, after a few months of looking into it, it got kind of frustrating because when you first come into flat earth, you kind of go back and forth. It makes sense one minute, the next minute it doesn't. So after about 3 months, I decided, I said, I got to get away from this because it's kind of driving me a little batty. So what happened was, once I got away from it, I felt like I was in limbo. In other words, I didn't know what to think.
Yeah.
So I said, now I got to go back in so that I can come up with some type of, be somewhere. So I got back in and I still was having trouble, but I was learning more as I went. And then it kind of just dawned on me. And then I just thought about it. I said, well, what if I just cleared my head and started from scratch? What if I just started with an empty mind? Where would I be? So I said, well, if I have an empty mind, all I have is what I observe around.
Hmm.
So when you think about it, what do you observe around you? Everything is flat and motionless, right?
Yep.
The only reason we think it's a globe is because that's what was planted in our heads. Once you move that out of the way, now suddenly there's no globe. See, so now I've got a foundation. I've got a starting point. So I started as flat and motionless, and that's where I am now. And my philosophy is I will stay flat and motionless unless scientifically proven otherwise. So now, fast forward from that moment to about, I don't know how long it's been since then, maybe a year, and that scientific evidence hasn't come up. And then what you learn is, and this is the weirdest thing about this whole thing, is that why is it so important to glow people that you don't think for yourself? Now, if you're a flat earther, I'm sure you run into this.
Hmm.
I can't for the life of me understand why it's so important to you that I think this way. And that's the most telling part of this whole thing. Because if you think about it, I'll bet you a dollar to a donut that you could care less what people think about how you feel.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think you said it right in that one response video, and you said that people are like flat earthers are getting too vested into it. They're buying all these gadgets. thousands of dollars, these cameras, they become vested into it, and I think that's the same way with the Globers. I think they're too vested
Exactly.
into the model that was given to them.
Right. And exactly. And seeing then what happens is they can't let it go. And you know, and you said it right there exactly because that's the reason that they must have you along with them. Because without you, their investment doesn't work.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm saying, in other words, like, let me give you an example. I don't know if I'm talking too much, so just
No,
cut me off.
no, go
Go ahead.
ahead. I'm usually talking too much, so I'm glad someone else is.
All right, so think about it. So in 2000 years, or over 500 years or so, uh, society has made an investment into the globe Earth. So people that, let me see, put it this way: by them making that big investment, it's very important for them to make good on that return. So that's why to them, they want to shut this flat earth thing down, because the more people that think for themselves, then all of that investment that they did in textbooks and schooling and education, see, all that goes down the drain.
Hmm.
And see, then uh but see, this is the part that gets me. The part that gets me is the people who don't have anything invested in society. I'm talking about your everyday people. You know, the ones that get in your comment sections and call you every name in the book.
Yeah.
Those people that get me because they don't have anything invested. You know what I mean? So now to jump topic a little bit and go to the other side as far as flat earth, people like Bob Nodell and Effie Core and these guys, what they're doing is they're thinking like globe people. In other words, they're making those same investments. You know, they're investing, got gyroscopes going on, and they're doing laser testing, and all of these things cost a lot of money. So once they're investing in it, now they become like the same society people that, put all that together over the last 500 years. So that's their part, that's their portion where they can't let go. And that's why you have that situation like you had with Nathan and Bob. But the main thing, like I said, the thing that surprises me the most is the people who are not vested, and how it's important to them that we don't think for ourselves. That's the key that makes this whole thing extremely bizarre.
Yeah.
You
It's hard to put a name to it, and I hate using the term just brainwashed, conditioned, hypnotized. It sucks using those words because you'd have to apply those words to people that you know and you care about.
yeah.
What did your family members or friends think about?
Well, see, I have a different approach than most people because I don't talk about it to people.
Yeah.
And the reason that I don't do that is because when I came into it, it wasn't because somebody talked to me about it. I had to, I developed my own interest. So my philosophy is that anybody else that comes into this, as far as I'm concerned, they'll have to develop their own interest, because I won't try to sell them on the idea,
Yep.
because I don't want to be sold on the idea. So, but other people do things differently. Some people, they go out and they like to do activism and all that kind of thing. And I have no problem. I mean, it doesn't bother me. But me personally,
Hmm.
I just, but what I do is I'll make videos.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? So if somebody's interested, then they can see the video, but it'll never be me saying, "Hey, did you ever think that the earth may be flat?" I don't, I just don't even bother with that part.
Yeah. What made you start making videos? What
Well,
prompted you?
sure. Good question. When I first got into flat earth, I found myself in the comment sections a lot. I've got so many comments between like Quora and YouTube. And if I could throw a number out there, I have to have at least maybe 10,000 comments.
Wow.
Right.
That
Not
okay.
comments, right?
Yep.
So what I decided was I said, I got to get off this keyboard. And I just decided I'd make a video. And then what I would do is instead of just commenting back and forth, I could just point people to the video. I
Makes
say, listen,
sense.
here's thoughts right here. You can go look at it instead of us back and forth on this keyboard all day.
Yep.
So that's how I started making my first videos. I only made a couple of them.
Yeah.
And I decided to make another one when this Behind the Curve documentary came out, because that was very interesting because it was so telling of what was going on about this pseudoscience and that these things that these guys were doing, and how everybody, all the globe people was like, yeah, see, flat earthers proved it's a globe. I'm like, man, you gotta be kidding me, you know. So I had to make a video about that. So it was between that one and the one for Globe Busters, and then I just made another one today. So I don't have a whole bunch.
Yep.
I think I've got about 7 or 8 altogether.
Yep. I put the link for your YouTube videos in my description box. So anyone who wants to go and watch your videos, they should. You've got good points in them. I think the last one I liked how like I don't know what other conspiracy theories or conspiracies actually, because I mean if
Yeah,
flat
I know.
earth is a conspiracy, then everything else, yeah, it's a conspiracy. So the Tower of Babel kind of idea is they
Yeah,
built this Tower of Babel where if anyone goes searching, all these rabbit holes, we're still never going to find the truth of it,
right.
and they
See,
built it. Oh, go ahead.
my philosophy about that is that all cultures have a Tower of Babel story. So that means it's not a religious thing; it's a cultural thing. And if you think about it, why do they all have that story? So when you think about it, look at the earth and we look at the stars. Now, if you'll notice, there is no scientific method that we could apply that would uh, verify how these things work, right? We can't vary the earth, we can't vary the stars.
Hmm.
So when you think about it, we can't know. It's impossible for us to know what's going on. But look what man has done. What man has done is said, you know what, I don't care. I'm going to make a truth. You understand what I'm
Yep.
saying? If I can't find out, I will make a truth and present it to the world. Now, if you look at our situation, doesn't that look like what happened? Because doesn't man have an answer for everything? Man has an answer for how the universe began, from the split second that it began all the way up till now. And every gap in between is covered. They've got it all. They've got evolution. They've got how the earth formed from small planetesimals. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So they've answered every single thing. And these are things that no man could know.
Yep.
It's impossible to know it. But notice how they claim they know it, and they push it with authority. I
Yeah.
mean, they're not just they're when they say this is how it is, they could just have a megaphone and scream it out loud and pound on the desk. This is how it is. And this is how people accept it. So those people that you run into that give us a hard time and all that, they accept it with that kind of authority.
Hmm.
But what they realize is these are just men that climbed that tower that they weren't supposed to climb. And that was why they didn't want man to do that, because they knew that man can't find the answers. These things are not for us to know. It is not for you and I to know how the universe began. You know why? Because if it was, we would have been there looking at it.
Makes me think a little bit about that.
You and I woke up one day and we were on this planet. It was already here. It was already doing what it was doing. The sun was doing what it was doing. The moon did what it did. All we could do is look at it. We
Hmm.
have no other power but to observe. But see, somebody wanted to come along and be able to control what you think you see. And when you control what you think somebody sees, now you control them. because everything that they see, you designed it. See, so if you're the master designer and I look at everything that you've done and that's my reality, now you control my reality just by changing the design at will. So whatever truth you write, it automatically becomes truth because that's the only truth that I know.
Yeah.
So we as flat earthers, we get away from that. And what ends up happening is that we start using our own minds and we get our own consciousness back. And then we become our own agents. Let me give you an example. You can't sell a product to 500 people that think differently. It'll never work because everybody's all over the place. But you get 500 people thinking the same thing, it's very easy to sell them something. See, so just like this heliocentric story could not be sold unless we were all on the same page. You can't sell that story to an independent thinker because an independent thinker is one individual. He's not a million. And see, and that's the great thing about flat Earth. Flat Earth is independence. It's a breakaway. It's getting back to what you were supposed to be, what you were born to be. You know,
Yeah.
you weren't born to be this one little speck mixed in amongst a billion people where you can't even be noticed.
You know, man, that is pretty wise words. I'm glad you're making videos. I'm definitely gonna tune in because yeah, I mean, from a sales point that works, and we can see it, right? They've solidified everything into one science type of thing, right? This the entire scientism, one dogma. And
One exactly, because the more people that you can have following the same thing. Think about this. You ever see on TV where they have the real big, huge marching bands?
mm-hmm.
And everybody marching in the step, everybody turns right at the same time. They all had the exact same uniform on. You can give that whole army one command and everybody will move. Now think about this. Imagine if that army was all independent thinkers. They're all dressed differently. They all step differently. See, you can't give one command because nobody will know what you're talking about. See,
Yeah.
this is the reason for all of this. When you look around the world and you wonder why the world operates like it does, that's why. It's all for control.
And it's interesting you say that because if you go to watch videos of North Korea, they'll put on a show and they'll have
Exactly.
people with just patterns of
Yes.
paper.
Perfect.
Yeah, and it looks like you're watching TV, but it's people making the motions.
Right.
And it reminds me of one of my favorite books. It's called Ender's Game, and we see this all the time. Is like the hive mind against the individual mind, right?
Yes.
You have a whole colony of some species that interacts with just the hive mind, like the queen, and
Yeah.
it's tough because they all act in unison, so they can coordinate their attacks really well. But the good thing about that is that if you have a same 500 people who have one goal but could act individually, I mean that one hive mind can't keep up.
Can't keep up. Right.
So there's
And
benefits and detractions to all of it, but you know, I don't think we want to be the hive mind. We don't want to become, you know,
no.
a hive species.
Well, the thing is, we weren't born to be, actually. Think about this for a second. What is the one thing in this entire world that doesn't need us to be a hive mind? That would be nature. See, if you think about it, nature doesn't need us all on the exact same page. You can be in nature and be an individual, and everybody can be different and function in nature. That's the only place that you can function at a billion people can function individually is in nature because nature doesn't need your herd mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Look at all of the animals. Look at how many species of animals there are on Earth. Notice that they can all function, and the tigers can be different from the gorillas, and the gorillas can be different from the snakes and the birds. See, they all can have families, but they can all be different. They don't have to all beat to the same drum.
Yeah.
See, so nature is the only thing that allows this. So if you think about it, what we have is a hijack of nature. Nature has been taken away and replaced with those leaders that we, like you said in the Korean Army, the guy that's sitting up there,
Yeah.
that's what we've been replaced with. We've been replaced with that small group of people at the top, and we all march to their command. But nature doesn't want us marching to any command. In nature, we're free to do whatever we want. And seeing what happened was, imagine an earth that was like that. Imagine your life if you could just do whatever you wanted without, as long as it didn't harm anybody. You know what I mean? In
Mm-hmm.
other words, you were free to do whatever. You didn't have to work for a living. You just go over to the tree and grab what you need. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Like the universal law. There's been theories. If you've ever watched a documentary called "There Are No Ferrets on Flat Earth," and it proposes that all the mountains are really silicon trees that were just really high, miles high even, and they bore fruit that were just huge and was able to just supplement. No one would need to be hungry because those trees provided all the food. Um,
Right. And when you think about it, but look what we're told. You turn on the news and all you hear is scarcity.
mm,
We got, it's too many people, not enough food. So you hear all of these things, but these things come from people. Nature doesn't say anything of nature doesn't talk.
mm-hmm.
For one thing, nature doesn't say word.
uh, I may have to contend against that, but keep going.
So my point is that we see, I think our biggest mankind's biggest downfall is the fact that he can speak. And the reason I say that, look at animals. Animals don't talk. They don't reason. See, but notice they can go through a whole lifetime and never say a word. A bird can go through a whole lifetime and never said a word to anybody, but they have their instincts, their food. They don't have a job. The
Yeah,
food is there. They know how to go and get it.
I mean they
You know what I
communicate, but it's pretty basic. It's not like they're having a very philosophical conversation like we are or something like that.
and see, the thing is, they don't reason. See, this is what I'm, in other words, this is just me, with my own thoughts. I think that we were meant to be just like animals, not really thinking. See, if you take an animal lives in the moment. An animal doesn't have a memory, and they don't look into the future. Who does that? We do. But do we do that on our own, or were we programmed to do that? See, that's the key. Imagine your life if there was no such thing as a past and no such thing as a future. But right now, we can't stop thinking about the past and the future. It's constantly at us all the time. We're always wondering about the next minute, the next second. But tell me what animal thinks about the next second.
Dog hungry for its next meal.
No, no, but I'm just see,
I'm just kidding.
but my point, but my point is, he's not really thinking about his next meal until he's ready for his next meal.
Mm-hmm.
He's not thinking about it while he's full.
Yep.
That's my point.
Yep.
See, he lives in the moment. He doesn't start to concern himself with food until he gets hungry. But
That's
we
why humans hoard and animals don't. Well,
exactly.
except for like squirrels, they can hoard, but
Right. But see, the thing is, they do that for a reason.
yep.
See, nature The reason that squirrels do that is because nature is set up in a way where they have to harvest their food. In other words, they have to save it for
Yep.
the hard times. See, they automatically know that I need to store because there's going to come a situation where I'm just not going to be able to grab it from anywhere. See, certain animals have certain instincts, and they. What my point is, they all go by their particular instincts. Now, human beings, we have an instinct too, but see, our instinct has been hijacked and replaced with this situation that we
Yeah.
have.
You know
But
what's
think about.
Have you
Go
ever
ahead.
read the Nag Hammadi?
No.
Oh, I think you might be interested in that because it kind of falls in line with your idea because in the Nag Hammadi, the Earth is basically Mother Earth, Sophia, and it's a living entity, and
Yes.
um, what came into beings that can't really exist on Earth like we do are these things called archons. It's a little bit different than the archons that you might have heard from like David Icke and things like that. But they just like to just mess around with people. So they selected a group of people where they were able to, they weren't able to uh, do anything like they can't take over the genome or anything like that, but they could kind of find a way to hijack into whatever. Maybe it's their some function in their brain waves, and so
Right.
they're able to get a bunch of people into that. So that it's like the chosen ones, like the Hebrews, and that's who they the whole entire thing goes is they are able to affect them. And they're able to do the things that they want them to do. So it's kind of like a hijacking of the humans. So they're not in full control of themselves anymore. It's like sometimes you see those animals with the parasites. It's like parasitic mind control, and
Correct.
it it kind of permeates to different types of people too. And I don't know, it's weird. I've been kind of looking into John Lash. If you ever want to look into his stuff, it's pretty similar to your idea, but he's going by the Nag Hammadi scriptures.
Yeah, and if you think about it, you can't rule that out because what you can do is you can take something like you just said and then look at people. You can just ask a simple question: why is one person different than the next? Why is it that this certain group of people needs to have all this control, but I don't?
Hmm.
See what I'm saying? So when you ask that simple question, that's a viable answer that something like that could be going on. In other words, you can't rule that out because there is something that is in our species that's making us different. You've got a handful of people that want to control, and you got millions and millions of others that really just want to go about their business.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason for that. You know what I'm saying? So that's why when you say things like what you just said, you can't say it's that way, but you can't rule it out. It
Yeah.
sounds plausible. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, once you rule it out, then you really can't go back to it. And if there's nothing else, then you're just kind of stuck with nothing.
All right. So for me, my thing and my goal is to get back to where we were meant to be. And like I said, flat earth is like a big door for that. Because
Hmm.
once you start thinking flat earth, you have just crossed over a major independence line. Major independence. I mean, I'm sure you feel it yourself, or anybody see. There's different levels to it. People are at different points
Hmm.
in flat earth. Some people just got in yesterday. Some people have been into it for years. So the more you're into it, the more you're crossing that independence barrier. You still live in this world that we're trapped in because this world is controlled by money. You have to work. You have to a sustained life. See, so you really don't have no choice but to be in the system, but at the same time be out of it. You're in it physically, but you're out of it mentally.
Yeah.
That's what flat Earth does for you. It frees your mind, you might say.
It's a tough situation to be in. you know?
Exactly.
Um,
To be honest with you, it's harder to be in that situation than it is to be in the herd mentality. Because see, when you're totally controlled, you have no idea that you're being controlled. So it's not a big deal. But when you know that you're being controlled, see now that's a whole nother ball game because it's on your mind.
yeah,
In other words, let me give you an example. If you're locked up and you don't know that you're locked up, then you feel like you're free. See, but if you're locked up and you realize it, see, so now it's like, man, I'm locked up. This is, not only am I not free, I realize I'm locked up. So that's the tough part that you're talking about.
yeah. It's similar to Plato's cave allegory. If you've ever heard of that one, it's basically you've got slaves that are in a cave and they're always facing a wall, and but there's a lot like a light behind them, a torch. And so they see all these shadows pass in front of them because they're always facing the wall, and they all they do is just name the objects. Because oh, I see that object. Let's call that a person walking. There's one that looks like an apple. Let's call that an apple. But they don't see the apple. They just see the shadow of the apple and the shadow of the man. And then one of them gets let out of the cave, frees himself for some or something. Someone just lets him out. He goes up, and he actually sees, hey, that's a person walking in. That person is the one casting that shadow. Hey, that's a real apple, but that person's, that apple that's the shadow of that apple. And then he goes outside, and oh my goodness, this is like brightest light I've ever seen. There's a thing in the sky. It's not a, it's way brighter than that torch. And he sees like real trees where the apple comes from. It's hanging from a tree, and he goes down to back to the cave and tells all the other slaves like what he saw, and they're like, "You're crazy! Why are you telling us this stuff? Go away!" That's what it feels like.
Now, what's very interesting in talking to you, you seem to be very well understood in what's going on around you. In other words, you do a lot of studying and you seem to have picked up a lot of knowledge. How did you manage to do all this? Because you seem to have escaped and know what's going on around you. And you look relatively young, to have accumulated all of this.
Um, it's I guess it's I've always had an independent streak, but like I wasn't into books until I was maybe 13 or 14, and then first thing I did is like I go to the library almost every day, and it's like I can't read all these books. There's just so many of them. I have to learn to read fast. The first thing I did was read a book on speed reading. And
All right.
so that helped me read books a lot faster. And so I got to the point where I could like finish a like 300-page book in like 4 hours. And
Okay.
and so I just did a lot of learning that way. But then, you know, go back maybe 10 years, I'm 40 now, so around 30, and I'm just learning on my own. It's like I've gotten to a point where I can't sleep for longer than 4 hours, at least that stretch of time. So it's like, what do I do with my spare time? So, instead of playing games all the time, I go search on the net, look through conspiracy theories, and just I'm just curious. It's just kind of like in the Matrix, Neo. He's always just looking for something because it's like, really, is this all that it is? Just wake up, eat, sleep, work 9 to 5, come back home, eat, find something to amuse yourself for a couple hours, then repeat. I mean,
So what you're saying is you have one of those minds that needs stimulation. You can't just do ever that the mundane things just don't cut it.
yeah, I like yeah. I mean, I don't understand what it is. I just feel like there's a reason that I'm doing it, and then when I look around, and I'm sure you've noticed it too, is like, why is nobody else doing this? you know, why am I the
Right.
one doing it? I mean, are
In
we
other
the
words,
lucky ones? Or are we the cursed ones? Or are we a bit of both?
right. In other words, you look at people and you wonder, how could you be satisfied with what you just did? In other words, how could you be satisfied with that day you just had?
Yeah,
It was like it didn't have anything to it. It just seemed so empty. So I know what you're talking about. It's that and I think my assessment of it is that deep down desire. I think every human being somewhere at different levels have a deep desire to be what they were meant to be, and somehow looking around, this ain't it. Just like you gave the example with Neo, that's the same thing that he had.
Hmm.
Something was just missing. This is just not, you can't quite put your finger on it like Morpheus says, but it's like a splinter in your mind. That movie was so true. It might as well had not been a movie. They should have just made that a very real documentary,
Yeah.
because it was not a movie whatsoever. I mean, the only part of that was a movie was the sci-fi part. And I'm not sure how much that was a movie. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
we don't know what we don't know when it comes to technology.
Yeah. I mean, it's gonna be technology is just gonna get so realistic. The simulation of everything. I mean, right now the latest movies, they're just making a lot of people who are old look real young, and it's almost hard to tell the difference.
Right. And then you think about it now. Look what they have now that they didn't have 20 years ago. You can put on a headset and be in a whole nother world.
Yeah.
And you can change the channel and be in somewhere else. So you're right. The technology is getting more and more AI. And this is what, in the video that I made today, it was talking about artificial intelligence. But notice when we think about artificial intelligence, what's the first thing we think about? Robots.
Hmm.
You know what the real artificial intelligence is? It's us. Because what do we have? Artificial intelligence. It's not real intelligence, it's artificial. When you're programmed with, in other words, think about it. From the day you went to school to the day you graduated, you were just a software program being loaded. Am I correct?
Yeah, it's very long and slow load, but yeah.
So what do you have? You have a whole earth full of AI human beings.
Yep. I mean,
But see, the way we're presented with it, we're presented with it like it's this future thing of machines. But see, that's just a part of the deception. We're the machines.
y-
We're the programmed machines.
in that line of thought, what's interesting is that after the schooling, say a kid graduates at the age of 18 from high school,
Right.
they're expected to be ready for life. But it's in this artificial construct that we've created, civilization. If they went out to live on their own in the wild,
Right.
they're not ready at all. I mean,
Exactly.
they won't survive a week out there.
Right. Because see, we live in our artificial intelligence environment. And the only way to survive in that environment is with artificial intelligence. That's what we have, especially people who are really into everything that they're told. Those people
Hmm.
that whatever is said, that's it. There's no question about it. That is full artificial intelligence. These are people that don't use their own mind at all. In other words, whatever you tell them, I don't care what it is, they can't discern anything different. Just like the globe people that you run into. Notice that if you've ever had a conversation with them, you can't tell them anything outside of that mentality. You're fine as long as you speak within the program. The minute that you say something outside of that program, they start glitching. That's that. You ever heard of like circle jerking? You know
Hmm.
how these people circle jerk? That's what that is because you're outside of the program and they can't function, so they just start going. In other words, when a computer, what does a computer program do? It loops.
Yeah.
That's
Or it
all it can do.
crashes. Yeah.
Right. Right. But when it's operating, all it can do is loop. It goes back around. It gets to the end and it starts at the beginning and it goes again. So this is what I mean by human artificial intelligence. They loop. So that's why when you have a conversation with somebody that's totally bought into the system, they can't go but so far before they start over from scratch. Haven't you ever had a conversation with somebody? Look, here's an example. Look at the Globe Busters thing. There's a perfect example.
Oh
What
yeah.
happened? Nathan hit a glitch in Bob. See, what happened was Nathan hits Bob's endpoint, and what did Bob do? He started right back from the beginning. That's all he could do because he was operating from a program. He couldn't get outside of it. That's why he glitched and got all upset because that's what happens when the computer crashes. That's what you call the crash. See, so in robot terms, the robot would just start, he wouldn't function. In other words, he would do some his smoke,
Yeah.
smoke would maybe start coming out of one of his parts. But when a human does it, you see exactly what you saw. Because when you saw that, didn't it make total sense to you what Nathan was saying?
Yeah. I was
It was
like,
right. But notice how come Bob had a meltdown? Because Bob is operating under a program. Now, even though he's flat Earth, notice he's still programmed.
yeah.
See, so these are the flat Earth people that are operating in a globe mentality, but think they're out of it. They're not out of it. They're still in it, but they just don't realize it. So that's why, even in your experience as a flat Earth, you'll notice that there are some people with a globe mentality.
Hmm.
But they're flat earth people, but they're thinking just like a globe person. So that's why you have what you had, like, and I'll use that show for an example because it's something we can both relate to. Nathan was totally on the outside, but Bob and his counterparts weren't.
Yeah.
They were still they were still operating like a program. Because think about it, like I said, I talk a lot, so you have to break in on me and let me know when this is too much. But think about it. What would ever make anybody think the earth was turning? If you've never been to school, if you grew up on an island, what would ever make you think that the earth was rotating? Because as far as you can see, it's still.
Hmm.
So you would never say to yourself, would would you ever look at something that's sitting still right in front of you and wonder if it's moving?
No.
In other words, your microphone right there.
Hmm.
Would you ever think that that microphone was moving?
No.
No. So this is what Bob and them is doing. They're looking at that microphone and saying, I wonder if this microphone is moving. Let me put a gyroscope on it and test it. This is the mentality that they have, but where did they get it from? See, nature didn't do that. Nature never said anything about moving. See, so the moving idea was planted in their mind. And now that they're flat earthers, they're going to look for this movement that was planted inside of them because the earth never said anything about moving. The earth never tapped anybody on the shoulder and say, hey, I'm rotating, come and check me out. Didn't happen. See, so that's what happens. It's programming. And the reason that the programming works so well is because people don't realize it. You can think that you're out of the program and still be in it. That's the amazing part.
Yeah.
It's not just a thing, well, you just decide one day you're out and you're out. No. This thing is really, really tight. It takes a lot
I
to know that you're out.
I think I wonder if it's the philosophy, because what you said early in the beginning, that you started over. You started with an empty mind. You just
Right.
said, okay, what do I see? And that's what it is. And what that reminded me of was I think it's a Taoist philosophy. Basically, the story is some master martial artist is looking going to another martial artist and saying, "Hey, could you teach me your martial arts style? Because I'd like to learn." And so
Right.
the master goes, "Sure." And so he keeps trying to teach him stuff, and the other master goes, "No, no, no. I think this is a better way to do it. No, no, no. This would be a little bit more efficient." And so the other master goes, "All right, let's sit down. Let's have some tea." And so the other master goes, "Okay." So he sets down a teacup. He pours tea into the other master's teacup, but he doesn't stop. It starts overflowing, and the other master's going, What are you doing? Stop." It's like, "Well, this is your mind. The teacup is full of your own stuff. If you want any of my tea, you're gonna have to empty your cup.
Exactly.
And
That
a lot of people don't want to empty their cup.
right. And that's a very that's I couldn't even think of a better scenario. That's about as close as it gets. Yeah, you have to, and that's what and if you'll think about it, a lot of flat earth people don't understand. And see, you couldn't have said that better. Flat earth people are starting off with a full cup. But let's use that same example. FE Core and Bob and those guys, they got this full cup. And that's why they're looking for rotation. Because in that cup is the same knowledge that they had before they ever started out. So, I mean, you should, if you don't make videos, you should start because
I have been making videos for a while, but nobody likes watching them. But
you
that's
should
okay.
make.
I just like talking to people because
I'm saying your philosophy is very understand. It's very vivid and it makes a lot of sense. You have the ability to take a scenario and put it in an analogy that can be very easily understood.
hmm,
I would have never thought of that idea with the teacup. That's the perfect way to explain it by emptying yourself. And seeing by me hearing that from you, that's more knowledge that I gain. See,
hmm,
so not only do I have the knowledge that I had, when I hear somebody else bring in more knowledge, that just gets added to it.
yeah,
See, in other words, now maybe when I go try to explain to somebody to empty themselves, it's not me just saying empty yourself. See, now I can add to, I can use an analogy. And see, and this is how consciousness works. When people are of one conscious, two people, separate individuals with the same conscience, add into one. So, in other words, there's no the only separation between us is the human element. The
hmm,
consciousness is the same. And saying I'm using that idea. I said empty your mind, and you gave the example of the cup. So notice how two different thoughts were the exact same, but they enrich each other to make it a more full, but two separate individuals.
yeah,
And see now imagine a whole society of people that had that one collective conscious that did what we just did just there. Imagine billions of people on that same wavelength. See,
and we do that in like corporations. We get together, have meetings, but we
yes.
don't do that as a society, which
Yeah,
is
because see what's happening is we're doing the same thing, but it's on an artificial level.
hmm,
There's two different levels. There's real and there's artificial. So what you see in the world is the exact same thing as real. It operates the same way, but it's just artificial, just like the corporation. See, the corporation operates how the real world should operate, and all in tune, all on the same page, but it's a real page. It's not a programmed page.
hmm,
You know what I'm saying? See, so
yeah,
that's the difference. It would be like a computer program running by itself instead of being programmed.
yeah,
We were not meant to be programmed. We were meant to just come into the world and experience it. We would have figured it out, just like the animals. Think of the animals. They're born, they don't know, there's no school, there's no class, there's nothing. You get a little bit of nurturing and watching over from the parents, just to make sure that you're just big enough to walk away on your own. And look what happens. You don't go to any school, but yet you understand the world around you. You understand your place. You know where you can go. You know where not to go. You know what situations are dangerous. You know which ones are safe. You know just how to build your home. You know just where to get the materials. You know just how much you need.
yep,
And without ever stepping a foot in the classroom. See, we used to have that ability. But see, once we got our consciousness replaced with artificial intelligence, now we have to go to the corporation. We
yeah,
have to go to the university. See, in other words, nature has been replaced by the university. Nature used to be the school. Now it's the university.
And we've let that control go. It's weird. It's
We, the thing is, we don't have a lot of choice because when we come into the world, it's already there for us.
yeah.
The corporations are there waiting.
hmm I know. And
They,
it's the most if you're not well if your parents aren't well off in the system in the artificial system,
right,
a lot easy you're going to be a lot easier incorporated into it because you won't have as many options.
exactly.
What I do like is talking to other people. Even though I have like no views and stuff, I've learned a lot from just your philosophy and the way that the videos that you made, and you just started making videos. So I mean, I find value in a lot of people who decide to make videos and have their own thoughts into it, and not just kind of regurgitate other people's thoughts, or maybe find what other people's thoughts are and just kind of say, yeah, I kind of see it that way, but I see it this way as well. So I just love that type of thinking where you're not just focused on thinking of one way, but trying to look at things from different angles and say, why are we heading towards this angle?
Right.
and
And and the great thing that you brought up about you said you don't have a lot of views. The less views and the less subscribers, the better. And the reason I say that is because look at it like this. If you're in a room with 1,000 people and you're trying to talk to all of them, how much are you going to get across? But if you're in a room with one person and you're having a conversation, you're going to be fully understood, and that person is going to fully understand you. So the more that's involved, the more it gets diluted. So even myself, I've got something like, I talk to a few people, a handful, see the videos, and even like a conversation like this. I would rather have a conversation like this than a whole big thing that's getting viewed a million. That's
yeah.
it's just going to get lost in the, you know. See, numbers is an artificial thing. See, that's something that's dreamed up. It's been put into our mind that if we got 1 million subscribers, we're doing better than if we got 50. See, that's a mental thing. And in reality, whether it's 1 million or one, it's the same thing in real consciousness. Numbers don't matter
hmm
in reality. They only matter artificially.
Yeah. I
Mm,
mean, I like to think it as if it's a herd mentality out there, and I'm telling people what they want to hear, and show them what they want to see. I'm gonna get the views, but if
exactly.
if we want to get people to just kind of empty their cup, wake up, learn something new, we're gonna have to tell them something that they're not used to hearing, or something don't want to hear, and they just have to realize, maybe one day they'll be like me and you, and they'll just be looking and saying, "Huh, maybe I'll just listen to what these guys have to say."
I think that everybody at some point in in time will go back to their original consciousness. I think it's like a journey. I think this is just talking. I don't know for sure, but it just seems like everybody is on a journey of some type, and everybody is somewhere along that journey, whether it's at the beginning or near the end or in the middle. But the goal is, I think, for everyone is to get back to that original consciousness, that point where you could be born into nature and have everything that you need, just
hmm
like animals do. I think that that's what everybody's goal is. But
It's hard because you learn so much about the artificial world. Having to unlearn it just to learn how to live in the natural world, it's
well,
it's
the thing is, that'll never happen. It'll never get to that point. See, in
mhm,
other words, that's that's over. We can only get there consciously. We can't do it physically because the world is already set. In
hmm.
other words, the way the world operates, you can't turn that off. You know what I mean? In other words, it's never going to come a day where all of a sudden a snap of a finger is going to happen and money's not going to exist.
Yeah, as much as I don't want that to be true, you might be right.
All right. So, but the thing is, there's a reason for everything. And my philosophy is that's fine. Let the physical world be as it is, because it's the conscious mind that's the most important. Because think about this. I'll give you three scenarios. There's the person that's locked up and knows it. Then there's the person that's locked up and don't know it. But think about the person that let me see, how can I make sure, because I got them. I should make sure I got these in the right order. You can be locked up and know you're locked up. You can be locked up and not know you're locked up. But imagine being, man, I'm not saying this right.
Physically free, but mentally imprisoned.
You know the point that I'm trying to make. Yes. In other words, uh, you can be locked up and not only do you not realize it, but you're not locked. I don't know. I'm trying to, I know what I want to say and I've done it before, but right now it's just getting all twisted. But it's three scenarios that you can be in this physical existence.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But in one of those instances, you can be totally free, even though you're locked up. I think that's the third one that I'm thinking of. In
Yeah.
other words, you can be locked up and not even be locked up at all. That is the hardest concept. What I'm trying to say is the hardest thing in the world to get that point across. But that's what, on this particular earth, that's the position that we can be in. We can be totally free. It's just that we can't depend on the physicality. We can't get locked up in trying, we can't get hung up on trying to be physically free, because this world is not built, is not going to allow physical freedom. We'll always see, in other words, as long as money exists, money will always be in control. You will not be able to do anything without it. And if you can get by without it, whoever you depend on can't. So money is that force that has us in this position that we're in, and that's what's going to make it. But see, you don't mentally need money. You need it physically, but mentally you don't. In other
Mm-hmm.
words, you can free your mind and it doesn't cost you a dime. You don't have to go anywhere. Nobody can, you don't have to get permission, right? In other words, you can think what you want. Nobody can stop you. So, here's my point. This is the point that I was trying to make before. It's two positions that you can be in. It's not three.
Okay.
And it's a matter of a choice of which you would rather be. Would a person rather be locked up with a free mind, or would you rather have a free mind and be locked up? Though it's two positions. So those are the two things, because it's the free mind that makes the difference. And let me give you another example. Have you ever seen people on death row and you see an interview on them and they tell you how content they are?
Yeah, I've seen some of those videos.
Before, you wonder, how in the world can you do, how can you even function for an interview? You know what I mean? Because what has happened is they have managed to get their consciousness to a point where it's beyond the physicality. See, our goal in life is to reach a point that we overcome physicality, not get physicality to the point of being, you know, free, but be free of the physicality.
Yeah,
You know,
I
and then using
agree.
that, you understand?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean, it, but that's also the first step. I mean, um, if you're gonna want to be mentally free, I mean, physically free, uh, actually, let me put it this way: if you want to be free both mentally and physically, you first have to be free mentally. Because
Yeah.
if
Right.
you're still imprisoned mentally, but you're physically free, you don't know
Right.
what to do. You're just gonna want to go back and say, "Yeah, I can't." Like, look at the people who go out of prison. right? They're
Right.
in prison for 10, 15, 20 years. Things change drastically in that amount of time. And so, most of the time they just want to go back in prison cuz they can't they don't know how to live in the current world.
Right.
So
So yeah, that's the thing. It's one of those things where it's kind of it's all about where your head is. You know, it's where are you mentally. You said it yourself. It's where you are mentally.
yeah.
So,
That's hard. I mean, it feels like the struggle. I mean, for you, you've got I think you've got a good mentality. Just let things be, and I think I'm not quite there yet. I'm still struggling. I'm still like, I want to free everybody. I want to free myself. Let's because the thing is I just don't want the world just keep getting worse and worse. I feel like
mhm.
if there's an opportunity to stop it, let's stop it and make things better. And the 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 thing is, you can't rely on going back to any control system. Money, you can't go back to that. Religion, we can't go back to that. Government, we can't go back to that. We have to pretty much be free of all of those control systems.
Right. See what and the thing is, what you're looking for is for the same thing that what I was talking about. You're looking for that consciousness that brings everyone on the same page, but not the artificial consciousness. It's the see the real consciousness is possible,
Mm-hmm.
because that's something that you can't stop. You can't stop consciousness. All the control in the world can't stop consciousness. So you can control the money, you can control the food, you can control the housing, you can control all of that, but you can't control the consciousness. The only thing that the hold that they have now is the idea that you can't be not be controlled. See, it's just an idea, but just like you said, see, it's that cup. As long as they keep that cup filled, that's their thing. That's the only thing that they can do is make sure they keep the cup filled so you can't put anything in it. But they can't stop that. So you can stop me from eating, but you can't stop me from thinking.
Yep.
See, that's the collective consciousness that has to that would be the thing that would bind everything and change the situation. This is just like you said, it's hard because we're talking from a conversation of an empty cup.
Yeah. I
See, so
know.
when you this isn't scripted. See, when you go by society, all you do is you go look it up. Anything you
Hmm.
want to know, you go. See, this conversation we can't Google. We can't go and Google this.
Yeah.
That's why it seems like we're at a loss and it seems like a struggle, but it's not that. It's just that we're not operating inside that herd mentality.
Yep.
It's supposed to be the conversation that we're having right now and the way that it's going, it's supposed to go that way. This is what an empty mind conversation is like.
Yeah. Have you ever been on Nathan Oakley's debates?
I went on one time, but because I've got my phone, it's hard to get the link.
Oh yeah.
But I watch it and I listen to it every day because see now I like the thing that I like about Nathan is really a sharp guy. The
Mm.
only thing that Nathan has that goes against him is his temper.
Yeah. It's like no
Yeah,
cussing, please, and all of a sudden, cussing
yeah.
tirade.
If he didn't have that temper, he would be absolutely. It would be ridiculous what he would be able to pull off as far as these debates go. But what happens, and but the thing is, he admitted it. He came out and said because somebody asked him, said, "What's with your temper, man?" And he just said, "Hey, that's just how it is. That's just me." And seeing that's just his trait. He's saying I can't do nothing about it because we all got our little things that we just can't shake, and I think that's what that is with him. But if he could find a way to stop insulting people, he would do unbelievable damage to the system
Yeah. I mean, he
because you can't
catches.
do that. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
Now, I was going to say you can have a conversation with somebody and insult them because once you do that, it becomes emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Now our conversation is not based on logic, it's based on defense. You've hurt my feelings. Now I'm mad at you. See what I'm saying? So now we're
Hmm.
just trading insults.
Yeah.
And that's why you always see it, it starts to descend after a while. And I talk to them about that. I tell them about that. When they do things like that, I get in the comment sections and I let them have it. I mean, yeah, you would think that um, after I made that video with the Globebusters thing,
Hmm.
you would think that I never said a harsh word to them. Oh, I've said some really harsh stuff to those guys.
Oh.
And that's the beautiful thing about Nathan, because just that morning I said something very harsh to him in the comments. Very harsh. What did he do the next day? He played my video. See, so he didn't take it personally. He didn't say, oh, that, so, that's the kind of guy he is. And that's one of the reasons why I admire him, because he doesn't hold this grudge.
Hmm.
He could have held a grudge and just trashed me on the show
Yep.
because I let him have it, and he comes right along and props me up. See, so that's what I like about him, because he has his success and he does well at what he does for a reason. He
Hmm.
has that temper, but he has something else that overrides that temper, that makes him special. When you listen to him, when you listen to him get into the debate, you can see how intense it is.
Yeah.
He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. Yeah, his mind's just firing on
He's
all
sharp,
cylinders. A-
very sharp. I
Yeah.
mean, sharp as a tack.
And I think what gets to him is, imagine you're stuck with listening to kindergartners tell you how the world works.
Right.
Day in, day out. I think I'd start losing my temper too. Like, no,
Right.
kids, the playground is not the supermarket.
Right, exactly. And if you think about it, I'm sure his temper has a lot to do with going through that. But when I get in the comments, and what I do is I try to suggest is, when that starts to happen, just cut it off. You don't have to engage in that. When somebody starts circle jerking you to death, all you have to do is say, okay, this is not going anywhere. Let's just change the subject. So you can do that very calmly. You don't have to stay engaged. And I think what Nathan does is he doesn't disconnect.
Mm,
He stays with, you know what I'm saying? In other
yeah,
words, imagine an unruly child.
but I think that has to be done in debates, because a lot of the Globers, when they go up against them, they know they're losing on that specific topic, so they want to switch to another topic, another angle, right?
No, yes, I get it. I get it. Yeah, but see, what my point is, not let them off the hook.
Hmm.
Just basically say, listen, this is not going. This ain't going anywhere. We're just going around this. In other words, acknowledge that we're going around in circles,
Yeah.
and do it in a calm way rather than get into the shouting match. Because the
Yeah.
shouting
Okay.
match. See, what happens is, once the shouting match happens, now you start to diminish your effect. So
Hmm.
you're diminishing your own effect when you start yelling. See, so it's better to just cut it off rather than bring yourself into that, child mentality and go into this schoolyard fight. If what I do when I comment and when I talk to people when they get unruly like that, I just basically, I let them know. I said, listen, I'm really not into childish conversations. If you want to have an adult conversation, I'd be more than happy to talk to you. But if all you want to do is sling insults, then I'm just gonna have to, and I'll type that very kindly.
Yeah.
I don't get into this, I don't engage with them and start calling them names back and all of that kind of stuff, you know.
Have you noticed that the internet, YouTube especially, that the comments are just always more vitriol, and really it's hard to hold actual
Real
stimulating conversation through commenting.
right. And I think that's because, see, that's the program. See, in other words, these people aren't interested in the conversation, they're interested in you being on their page. They don't want to hear anything you got to say.
Yeah.
They could care less what you're talking about. All they care about is you're out of the barrel. We were talking about the locked up thing. It's like, how you're trying to get out. What the hell are you doing? Get back in here. See, so their mentality is to get you back in, not to have dialogue.
Hmm.
If you ever talk to a globe person, they have no interest in what you're talking
Nope.
about.
They will just say, yeah, you're. They'll deflect. They won't
Right,
target the actual flat Earth part. They'll just
right.
say something about flat earthers in general. They'll talk about maybe something else. You must think that the Yeti lives in your backyard. Bigfoot or something. It's like,
Yeah, see, in their mind, they're there to help you. See, a flat earther is lost as far as they're concerned.
hmm.
And what their job is to bring them back home. You'll notice it. Let me help you. You're not understanding, so let me give you understanding. And seeing that's their mentality because that's what they've been programmed to do.
Yeah.
They're right. They've been programmed that they're intelligent. So, in other words, so if you do something that's different, then that means you're not intelligent by default. You
Yeah.
can't be because they've been programmed into intelligence. In other words, they got a PhD. So if they've got a PhD, their PhD means intelligence. So if you say something that's different than that PhD, then something must be wrong with you. See,
Yeah.
so they don't understand maybe what you're saying has merit. What they're saying is that no, I'm intelligent. You can't be unless you're saying the same thing I am. And that's the world that they live in. See, in other words, flat earth is stupid. Glo- Globe earth is very intelligent. That's just how it is. So if you're talking flat earth, you're stupid by default. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter how much sense you make. You can be making all the sense in the world. It's built into the system.
Yeah.
So now, whenever you talk to them, they're helping you because you're the dumb one. They're the smart one.
I
yeah,
would just, but the good thing about that is because when you look into flat Earth, you're looking into a lot of the science that's supposed to be behind it, looking at the experiments, looking at the formulas. At least I have, and then I keep going back and not just the formulas, not just the experimentations that they should be doing, but they aren't there. But actually looking at the history and the dates, which don't line up, and then just kind of thinking about um, the history that's fed to us. I don't think they did a good job because
right.
every time I look back in history, I was like, hey, back then, weren't we supposed to be like copper age? Like, how do we have all these things figured out? Or it's like no one's went to the North Pole since 1909. At least that's what history says. Yet, we the French was able to come up with the length of a meter by saying it's 1/10 millionth of the distance between the North Pole and the equator. So how did they
Right.
know where the North Pole was if no one reached it since 1909, but they came up with that in like 1734? And and same thing with the Einstein's field equations. Like he uses Newton's constant, gravitational constant. Newton's gravitational constant
Mhm.
uses the radius of the Earth, and so he has to get the radius of the Earth from Aristosthenes. And
Mhm.
Aristosthenes just does a little observation, two different areas, and figures out, okay, let's just say that the Earth is round, so we'll just divide it by 360, and we'll get the degrees. And
Right.
so, but people
And
don't know all that, and it's even if I point that out to them, they're like, "Yeah, so that's it. Yeah, so."
and and take it a step further. Now, this is even more weird. How did they know back then that Aristophanes knew what he was talking about to hold on to that information? Do you know how many people were running around with ideas? How did they know that this was the one that was on to something.
Hmm.
In other words, like, let me give you an example in today's, say that you're at a university. Now, you know how many ideas are flowing around in a university?
Yeah.
Million, billion, there's a million great ideas flowing around. Who knew that one person came up with genius? Who was the one that was able to spot that out, hold on to it for years and years and years, and then connect it with somebody else at another university that they spotted, Newton, and then hold on to that until they spotted another one, Brahe, and connect? How did this string of people get connected, plucked out of thousands and millions of thinkers? How did you just pick this one individual and knew that he was going to make history? How did you know that? So talk about a timeline. How did you even be able to, you know, see? And the reason that they're able to pull this off, like you said, these strange dates that don't make no sense, because when you're writing a program, it doesn't have to be believed. It doesn't have to make sense. It just has to work. See, so if you're programmed not to think about what you're being taught, then it doesn't matter what you're being taught.
Yeah. That is true. I mean, that's
When
why.
we're when we go to school, we're taught, we're just learning to regurgitate. We're not being taught to make sense out of it. See,
Yeah.
but see, the people like you are doing is you're taking a step back and you're thinking like, wait a minute, hey, this doesn't make any sense. See, so that's what the free mind does. And that's what society can't have, is people like you thinking for yourself.
Yeah, but
That's why,
yeah.
because you're an interruption to the program. So you're causing the program to crash
Well,
with this dependent thinking,
I
with
hope
these.
so. We just need a million of us, and we'll crash the system for good.
Right. But I mean, if you think about it, look what Flat Earth is doing. Flat Earth is having a major impact. I mean,
Hmm.
10 years ago, Flat Earth was not a thing. I mean, it just wasn't even a thought. Nobody even, but look at it now. It's like this thing that you just can't stop. Every time you try to stop it, the hole gets bigger.
Yeah, that is
Just
true.
like with that Behind the Curve documentary, they have no idea the damage that they just did to their plan. Their plot was to nip this in the bud. All they did was cause a big giant explosion, because people like you, independent minds, are going to sit back and go, hey, wait a minute. That wasn't no experiment. He didn't just prove it. That doesn't prove anything. I'm not that retarded. So what that film is going to do is going to reach out to independent thinkers. Now, a lot of the herd mentality is going to see it and go, yeah, yeah. But a lot of independent thinkers like yourself is going to take a step back and go, wait, let me look into this. And that's how this thing will grow.
Yeah, it's a slow process. One of the analogies I even use of, I think maybe it was Jesus, is like he'll cast a net to catch fish, and if he catches a whole bunch of fish, he just keeps the one large one that's there and throws the rest back.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we're not going to change the herd mentality all with one big net, but you know we'll get one by
You,
one. Each one of those people will grab another one, and then we'll get this big chain going.
But see, now think about it this way. It won't be us that's doing it. You know who's going to change the herd mentality? They are. See, they're going to change it by trying to stop it.
Oh man, that is a good thought.
All right. See, they're we don't have to do a whole lot, but just sit back and let them undo it. If you
Because
think about what's going on is an undoing. It's not us talking to each other. It's them just trying to, trying to make sure every time they stop one of us, they breed 10 more.
yeah.
So they're the ones that,
So it's almost like we don't have to do anything drastic. We just
the beauty of it. See, that's the part about it. Remember I said that we can't get out of one area, but that one area that we need to be out of, that can't be stopped. See,
mhm.
in other words, you can stop us physically, but you can't stop us mentally. Mentally, it'll take over. And before the physical can ever change, just like we were talking about before, the whole mental will change. So maybe somewhere way, way down the line, the mental will take over and the physical will follow. But it's not important because that part is out of our control. It's just, in other words, like this: we all have to die.
Mm-hmm.
There's no question. In other words, right? We're physical, so there's no way around that. But the mind, the thought never dies. See, so the physical is going to do what it does. That's not what we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a machine. It's just like any computer, any car. That's all it is. It's just a vehicle. And I think what happens is we were programmed to make too much of this physical body. We're programmed. Think about it. Look at all of the commercials selling the products. You want the clothes to make the body look better. You want the makeup. You want to get the hair cut just right. You want to wear the right shoes. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
All of these things are physical things. So we're programmed to believe that the physical is more than what it's supposed to be. Because in the end, that physical will disappear and you'll never even see it again.
Yeah.
But look what we're programmed to focus on. Even when we leave, when people, and I know this is a morbid subject, but even when people die, look how much attention is placed to that. The person is gone, but you got this thousands of dollars and you got your few all set up, this gone. The person you'll never see that physical body again, but look how much is put into it.
Yeah.
See, so it's just an illusion. It's to make us think that we're supposed to be focused more on the body than on the mind. Now, I'm going to tell you something that's really deep, and this is just a thought of mine. Ponder this: once you become fully mental, your body will disappear.
Like physically disappear?
In other words, what I'm saying is this physical world that you
Mm-hmm.
see, it's not there. It's only there because it's programmed in you to be there. Once you get to that level of full consciousness, there will be no physical.
I kind of got you, but I'm not
In
there
other
yet.
words, put it like this. Put it like this. The physical has a limit.
Mm-hmm.
It has a duration. In other words, you were born on a certain date, right?
Mm-hmm.
You will die at a certain point in time. Am I correct?
Mm-hmm.
When did your mind arrive?
As early as the first thought you can remember, I guess.
I have no idea, do you? But we know your birth date, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you don't know when your mind got here. You just was there one day. In other words, it was just like that. Suddenly you had a consciousness, correct?
Mm-hmm.
You don't remember this conscious coming in. In other words, there's records of you being born. There were people that saw you being born. So they can pinpoint the time you were born, but they can't pinpoint the time your consciousness came.
True.
Right. Now, when a person dies, you don't know where that consciousness went. You know where the person went. You can see the person is gone. They're dust. But where did the conscious go? You can't see it, can you? Do you don't know if you don't know where that conscious is. So that's my point. Once the mind becomes nothing but conscious, there will be no physical. The physical won't exist. The physical only exists because it's a remember the matrix?
Mm-hmm.
It's just a program. It's not really there. It just feels like it is. It feels real, but it's not really real. In other words, when you look at TV, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't you see the people? You see the buildings, you see the streets, you see the cars, don't you?
Yep.
Plain as day. But are they there?
No.
No. It's just an image. So now apply that to what you're looking at right now. What's the difference? None. It's just an image. It's just it looks real. It looks real because you were told it was real. Ever since you were born, you were told that this is a real thing. You never decided that any of this was real. It was taught to you.
Hmm.
So, in other words, what I'm saying is this. Remember, we were talking about this physical thing will never change. So that sort of feels like a doom kind of fact, you know.
Hmm.
But what if it doesn't exist at all? Wouldn't,
Yeah.
and if it didn't exist at all, wouldn't that be the answer? This is just a thought. I mean, remember, this
Yeah.
cup is empty. So
Yeah. I
we're talking
mean,
the cup here.
yeah.
Just imagine,
The physical part was just a simulation in order for
okay,
our consciousness to grow.
right.
Then yeah, the physical
It's
stuff
not
doesn't
really
matter.
true.
It's just the consciousness that really matters.
Here, let me give you this example. Here's an example for you, and this should tie it up together. Before you became a flat earther, you were in the heliocentric. You were a heliocentrist, correct?
Hmm.
Where is that heliocentrist now?
It's
It doesn't
gone.
exist, does
Yeah.
it? Right.
Nope. Yeah.
In other words, now notice now, right now, it was never there, was it? As far as you're concerned, it doesn't exist, does it? There's no such thing. But go back 10 years. It was very real, wasn't
Um. Yeah. Like I'd be
it?
excited with like when when we discover like a new Earth-like planet or something like that. I'd be like, oh, that's awesome. I
But see,
wish.
this is
Yeah.
but this is a little different. In other words, the point that I'm making is go back 10 years ago.
Hmm.
Picture the world that was in your mind. In your mind, you saw a round earth, didn't
Yep.
you? You saw a round earth circling the sun, didn't you?
Hmm.
Okay, now what do you see now? You don't see that anymore, do you?
Nope.
Okay, so now what happened to it? Where did it go?
It just
Here,
dispelled, I guess.
no, no, here's the answer. It
Hmm.
was never there.
It was.
See,
Well,
it was only there in your mind. It didn't exist. You only thought it did. And once you realized it didn't exist, it disappeared, right?
yeah.
And so now, once it disappeared, it never was there in the first place, was it? It can't just disappear in thin air. It couldn't have been there in the beginning. Things don't disappear. Either it exists or it doesn't. So if it doesn't exist, that means it never did.
It's
Now,
just the yeah. Okay. It's just the
it's just
thought
a
of it
thought.
existing.
Now apply that to this life that you're living. It's there as long as you're living it. But once you understand that that's not there, then it never happened, never existed. Once you get to that point that you don't see yourself as a physical entity, you never was a physical entity, just like with the globe. You thought it was there because that's what was programmed in your mind. Once that was gone, it was gone. Same thing with your physicalness and all the physicalness that you see. Once you understand your consciousness, all that'll be, it won't exist. It'll have never existed. And it'll be just like you said, it's just a simulation. When you turn off the TV, what happens to that image? It never existed. Can you find it? You can't go back and get that image. It's gone. It's never it where it was never there. So this is and I know this is deep,
No, it's
but
good.
this is empty cup thinking.
Hmm.
It's not something that you hear and you try to buy into.
Hmm.
It's something that you just hear and you process it and just go on about your business.
Yep. And eventually, it may come up again. And it's like, James, I got you now.
See, the thing is, consciousness doesn't live in time.
Hmm.
See, in physical, we do things by a certain time. See, so we get this at this time, just like when you go to college. You go at this semester, next year, you go into your sophomore year. See, so you do things in time. But in consciousness, there is no time, there is no space. So if there's no space and time, how can anything physical exist? Because physical things can only exist in time and space. Consciousness can't exist in space, or it doesn't have a clock. That's why you never remember getting it, and you'll never remember it leaving because it doesn't exist in space. It doesn't go anywhere. Tell me where your conscious is right now. You can't, can
It's
but can you tell me where you are right now?
yep.
Yes, you can. But your consciousness, you can't touch it. You can't follow it. You don't know where it's coming. It's just like the wind. You don't know where it's coming from. You don't know where it's going.
It's kind of like that with thoughts in
Saying
some ways. Like
conscious.
sometimes you can't control the thoughts that come in your head sometimes. Even though you can organize your thoughts a certain way, but when an idea comes, it just comes.
That's consciousness. And like I said, I think I don't know how much I'm holding you up here. So just let me know when you gotta go.
Oh, it's okay. Oh, it's been an hour and a half. Um,
It
let's
doesn't bother me. You just go as long as you want.
okay. Let's try for another half hour and
Oh,
try to
sure. Piece of cake.
close things
Come
down.
on.
But we can always do this another time too. Um, like
Yeah.
now you got me to the point where usually after one of these things, I just kind of be looking and researching for more things. Now I'm probably just gonna sit back and think a little bit.
Right. And that's because see, that's what I do. I process. You know, I come across information and I just process it. I just let it. But that's what, see, I had the same situation that you did because when you look at the world, remember you said I just wanted to be a better place. I want so bad to make this world a better place. But and then we look at that reality and say, well, man, I can't do it. There's nothing I can do. This place just seems like it's getting worse. But what if it's not there? See, if it never happened, imagine that. Just take a second and imagine that this physical world never happened. Just your conscious, nothing else.
We can imagine whatever we
In other
want.
words, in other words, your body was never born. You were never Iban Kim, right? That's how you pronounce your last name.
Hmm.
You were never that person. You were never a male. You never ate food. You never went to work. You never had a job. You never been to school. See, all you had was consciousness. So imagine just having consciousness. Now you're not limited to anything. You can't be locked. Try to lock up a consciousness. You can't put a consciousness in jail. There's no way to lock it up. See, so that's why we live in this program because we are put into a mentality so that we're not living in consciousness, so that we're living in physicality. So you can threaten physicality. I can threaten you by taking food from you. I can't threaten your consciousness. I
Hmm.
can't deny your consciousness. I can't do anything with it. See, so they know that. So what they do is we live in artificial intelligence so that we don't live in real intelligence. As long as we're under the illusion of artificial intelligence, we'll live in this physical world. Because what we're doing is we're experiencing a reality that is not a reality. And like I said, that Matrix movie, it's the perfect example. Just look at that Matrix movie. Take out the sci-fi, and then just pretty much think that that's pretty much how it's a program. But when we think of program, we think of the program that we learn about. See, we think the program is over there. That's the trick. We're the program. See, we're the artificial intelligence that we think is coming. The artificial intelligence has been in the physical world the whole time.
How do you explain the like two different consciousnesses experiencing the same physical reality?
Well, there's only one consciousness. See, in other words, your consciousness and my consciousness is not two separate things. Why? You know why it seems like they're separate? because we're living in a program of physical body. See, you think that you're sitting where you are behind your wherever you are,
Hmm.
and you think that I'm over here wherever I am, but that's not consciousness.
That's just.
See, consciousness doesn't have a place. See, there can't be two consciousnesses because two things require space. Three things. See that when you start talking numbers like that, now you're talking they have to be somewhere. If you got two consciousnesses, that means you got one conscious here and one over there. Well, where is that? Where is over here and where is over there? There is no such thing. See, so there is nothing but one conscience. Every human being, this will trip you out.
Hmm.
Every single human being that has ever existed and ever will exist is the exact same person.
It's very similar to the the ayahuasca experience. What you're saying, it's really it's hard to grasp. I think it is hard to grasp.
Right, right. Because we're not programmed that way. See, we're
Yeah.
programmed out of that. See, we're programmed into these billions of individuals, but that's a program. See, we were taught that. When you were born, you didn't know anything about that, but it was taught to you. That's what the purpose of school is. That's the purpose of society is to let you know that you're not part of this major one consciousness, that you're an individual, you're separate. Everything that's taught to us is how to be separate. Don't you hear it all the time? You know, be yourself, be different, be, that
Hmm.
that's that's the physical world. You know, like say, take a game where you have a football game, say, and you have a winner and a loser. So now what do people want to do? They want to win. I want to be on a winning team. I don't want to be on a losing team. But if you think about it, you can't help but be both. You have to win and lose at the same time. You can't because it's man, this is the most difficult thing in the world to conversate about. See, when there's no such thing as time, if you win 1 minute and you lose the next minute, if there's no such thing as time, didn't you just win and lose at the exact same instant?
Yeah.
See, so by that philosophy, that means that there's no such thing as winning and losing. See, so this separation that we think we have, it's not really there. Once you take away the time and space, all you have left is consciousness. We live in time and space because we're programmed to live in time and space. So once you separate everything, that means that one person could think that he's killing another, right? Because he thinks that they're separate,
Hmm.
correct? But what he doesn't realize is that they're the same people. You can't kill somebody else because you are that person. So all of these things that people think that they do to each other, we only do them to ourselves because we are all there is. There is nothing else.
What are your thoughts on what's the entire purpose if there is one? Why would we go through a program that
I understand. I think I got your point. Your point is have the why have this physical existence at all?
Mhm.
Right? What would be the point of it? To be able to appreciate consciousness. See, if we didn't go through all of this physical thing, then how would we be able to appreciate what consciousness is? In other words, you wouldn't even know it existed because you wouldn't have anything to really bounce it off of. Like let me see if I can put that in a perspective. To that. All right. Imagine a thought without nothing to think about. See, if the physical world that we live in is what makes us have the ability to think. In other words, it's like this is really hard for me because this is really a first that I'm trying to put this in this type of a perspective. Let's see. If you've got, let's say you got a television screen, right? A television sitting on the table.
Hmm.
Well, if all that television did was sat there on the table, then what would it be? Unless you can turn it on and see the images in it, then what is there to process? So that is the purpose of the physical life, to give the consciousness something to process. Because if it wasn't for that, then the conscious itself wouldn't have existence.
So consciousness needs a container to to understand that it exists rather than being lost in
Exactly.
emptiness.
Right. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of one of those things. Like I said, this is really, I'm not trying to say that I know something here or I'm
Hmm.
setting in stone. It's kind of just a conversation. We're just throwing thoughts around.
Yeah.
But when I think of consciousness and I think of the physicality and why that is because the only thing that I would be able to come up with is that the consciousness needs something to give it a meaning. In other words, this imagined separation, the
Hmm.
conscious needs in order to, I can't, you know what, to be honest with you, I can't even put words on it.
Uh, m-
It's one of those things that I
uh,
couldn't
how about
explain
this?
if my life depended on it.
Yeah, it'd
But
be
I
like
understand it,
it,
I get it.
like I don't know what it'd be like to lose one's mind. It'd be like, imagine just being out in space with nothing around you, no stars, no planets, no light, just darkness. I could
Right,
see, but being able to live forever, I think you'd
right.
start going crazy.
Yeah,
So you have to fix yourself on something. Maybe you'll imagine a bright light, and you can focus on that light. Then you realize that you're still there. You're still able to focus. But if you don't have that, you're not gonna be able to focus on anything. So you just kind of go crazy.
right. See, in other words, it's like consciousness needs something to be conscious about.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? In other words, consciousness just can't be, you know what I mean? If consciousness didn't have anything to be conscious about, then there would be no point to the consciousness at all. As ridiculous as that sounds.
Yeah, I see where you come from. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it'd just be like a person where they can control their thoughts, so they just did whatever that their unconscious was telling them to do. That's what we typically call what people crazy or something. But
But look at it like this. Let's say let's say that you're a consciousness and you wanted to experience something. In other words, if you just before anything, before let's go way back. Let's go all the way back before any physicality ever existed. Okay. Now at that point, all there is consciousness, correct?
hmm.
Because consciousness doesn't have a time, it doesn't have a beginning. It's just there. So now if you go all the way back, then what is that consciousness doing at that point in time? It's not doing anything. It's not experiencing anything because there's nothing to experience. See, so what we have in the physical world is experience. See, the consciousness now has something to experience.
Hmm.
So, but it's just an experience, it's not a thing. In other words, an experience is not something that you can grab and hold on to. It's not a physical thing.
Yeah.
It's experience.
Like I had, I mean, just I had ayahuasca experiences, two of them. I experienced them. It wasn't physical; it was mental, but I take it like it really happened, right? Same thing with certain dreams. People realize certain dreams, and
Think of there you now see now you just hit it right there. Now that's a beautiful example. Now take a dream, right? Now when you're having that dream, isn't everything there?
mm-hmm.
Everything's right there, right? You can fit, you can touch the, if you're dreaming about a table, you can see the table, you could set something on it. You can walk over to the door, you can open it, you can go out of it, you can walk down the street. But when you wake up, that dream never happened. This place doesn't exist.
Yep.
So that's kind of like what the physical world is for, a place for you to dream.
Except
But
it's
it's not really, but it's not there. You know what I'm saying? So even though it seems real, it's not. It's just consciousness experiencing. It's here's the phrase. It's consciousness experiencing itself. Now, if I could put it in any kind of words off the top of my head, that would be it. Consciousness experiencing itself.
hmm. Hmm.
It's one of those things. It's see, I spend a lot of time in thought like this. I mean, this is kind of like my thing. I'm a thinker. That's what I do. That's my main. I don't know why it's like that. I'm one of those people that can't turn the mind off. It
Yeah.
just goes and
Trust me,
goes.
I know what that's like.
Right. So that's why we can have a conversation like this because it takes that type of.
Yeah, a lot of people just either don't want to hear it or don't want to engage in it, or just put their own perceptions. I'm just trying to form things like you're forming things, and I think
Yeah.
I probably won't get there now, but I think I'm letting it sink in. So maybe one day when I'm thinking and it comes to me, it's like, oh, and then you're gonna see me, hey James, we gotta have a talk again.
But that's how all thought is. If you'll know, now I'll guarantee. Now, I've never met you before, but I can tell you of experiences that you've had. How many times have you been sitting there and then you'll go, "That's it, I got it. Now I understand." Out of the clear blue sky, you weren't trying to think about anything, and all of a sudden you had this epiphany.
Yeah,
It just that you don't know where it came from, but all of a sudden it was there. And you're looking around, going, how did where did that come from? Where did that information come from? Nobody gave it to me.
yeah,
I didn't know. Right. So that's what this is like. This is not one of those things that you can uh, set a time on and say, okay, I understand. I'm going to understand. Because consciousness doesn't work like that. Consciousness comes like a dream. You don't plan. Tell me a dream that you plan. You can't decide what it's going to be. Consciousness is something that you let happen.
yeah. And
The more you
th-
try to force it, the less it works.
curious question on for you. Do you ever have certain thoughts or images that come across, but you don't really look into it, but they keep coming, and then you go, okay, I'll just look into it, and then you get that eureka moment. It's like, oh, was this a sign that I need to look into it? Because you, for me, I had the same thing where it's like something would come up, and it's like I should look into it, but then I'm busy with my other stuff, I'm focusing on something else, and then it comes back and it's like it won't leave me alone until I look at it, and I look at it, it's like, oh, it's like, why was it
You're, what,
signaling?
what you're talking about is synchronicity.
I
That's
guess.
kind of like it's like in other words, you notice something, but it's not something that anybody would notice, but
Yeah.
you did. Yeah, right. Because that's what you would call like synchronicity. That's consciousness, in my opinion. This is just me talking off my head. That's that's you being aware of consciousness. See, because what's happening is you're sliding in and out of a program.
Mm-hmm.
See, the programming that's been programmed into you, it has glitches. You know, you're experiencing glitches because your consciousness is being like Neo. So you're going through that Neo experience where you live in this programmed world, but these things are happening and it's making you go, wait, what was that? I gotta see what that was. I gotta look into this.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Oh gosh. Man.
But yeah, I mean, I'm open for conversation anytime. And the thing that, even like a stream like this, I'll guarantee you there's a good half hour of this where I'm off on a tangent. I have no idea what I'm talking about, or because it's not one of those things where it's a controlled conversation. You
Mm-hmm.
ever see somebody do a lecture and
Yep.
it's all they go to the podium and from start to finish, you can follow that very nice and evenly and it'll all be flowing. But see, I'm not one of those people. I'm not operating on any kind of a system. It's all random. So I'll be saying things I have no idea what the heck I'm talking about. I'll go back and look at my own videos and go, oh, and it's like I'm hearing it for the first time. So like I said, it's one of those. It's hard to have a conversation because it doesn't have a foundation. It doesn't. It's like it has no order. It doesn't have the order that we're used to seeing.
Mm-hmm.
See,
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of the good
it,
thing with just normal conversations and debates. You don't know what's happening. It's not really scripted unless people have like stuff that they've prepared.
Yeah, in other words, in this conversation that we've had, I've confused myself at least 3 or 4 times. I'm going to myself, what the heck are you talking about? But that's part of it. See, if I didn't do that, if I stopped myself from doing that, then I wouldn't think outside of the box
Mhm,
because I'd be too concerned with making a mistake, saying the wrong thing.
mhm.
See, so that's why I allow myself to go ahead and do that. Even though somebody might be watching this and they'll go across 10 minutes and go, what the, what? But I can't be concerned about that because that's how my mind works. It's not all, yeah, I'll even explain it in my videos. You'll hear me at the end say, listen, this is just off the top of my head. Forgive me if this wasn't very coherent because I'm not speaking from this planned format.
Yeah. And
Sometimes I don't even know if it's me talking. See,
uh
because that's how consciousness works. You never know when it's consciousness talking or you. So
yep. And sometimes one thought sparks another.
right.
What you say sparks something in my head, and I'll let that out, and then just spark something in your head, and we kind of feed off of each other. Um, to have the conversation. And it's not like I've got a set of questions and answers that I'm ready to reply to you. It's just
Yeah,
more of we're just
right. Do you know what? Here's one thing that I really enjoy doing, and I guarantee you that you'll never hear this from anybody that they enjoy doing this. I I like listening to somebody talk who's out of their mind.
hmm,
I pay attention to people that are out of their mind.
like out of their mind as
In other words, they're just talking. I mean, they're just rambling all kind. You have this. In other words, where the average person will say, "Oh my God, this person is nuts. I don't want to hear it." I listen to those people. Now, I don't do anything with it, but I pay attention because how do I know that they're out of their mind? See, I don't know what they are. All I know is they're talking. So it can't hurt for me to listen.
mhm,
Now, when I listen to people like that, I have learned some of the nice. Let me give you an example. I was talking to this person that had a mental problem, right? Now, most people don't pay people with mental problems that much attention because they figure you're out of your mind. I hear you talking, but I'm not paying you no attention. Well, I was paying attention to this one person. Now, you know what this one person told me? This was a long time ago. She said, Brian, she said, she said, Russia and China don't exist. She said, they've been gone a long time ago. She said, the only thing that you're seeing on TV right now are the images, but these places are disappeared. Now, the average person would listen and say, man, this person is nuts, correct?
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't look at it as nuts. What I did was I listened to how that could be possible. So I thought about it. And I said, you know what? If China and Russia was disappeared, how would I ever know that?
Exactly.
I wouldn't, because all I'm going by is what I see on the TV. I'm looking at they're showing China right there on television. I'm looking at it. They're showing me events. See, but in my mind, I'm not realizing that all I'm looking at is an image. I'm taking that image and I'm building a reality around, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's when I say I'll listen to whatever, because I have no idea if you're really out of your mind. You might be very in your mind, when you really think about it. So now when you take a thought like that and you apply it to certain things, you ever hear anybody say, I've been all over the world? You ever hear somebody say that? And I'm talking about just traveling. I've been all over the world. I've traveled here, I've been there, I've been, you've heard that. You have to have heard that.
Mm-hmm.
People say it all the time. Right? You've heard somebody say, I've
Yeah.
been all over, I've traveled the world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, think about that thought. Think about how that sounds. On the surface, that sounds like you've covered every spot on the world,
Yeah.
but you haven't really been any place that much. You've been in a straight line. You went from one point to another point, and you occupied a small area. And then you went to another point and you occupied a small area. How far can one person go? But when you make a statement like I've been all over the world, that sounds a lot bigger than it really is. You ain't really been no place. You've been on a couple streets.
Yeah.
You've been at this hotel and you went and visited this monument and you went down the street to this restaurant. You
Mm-hmm.
ain't been all over no world. But see, this is how people think. People think different than what reality is. Now, just like yourself, now let's go back to that instance with the lady told me. Now, in your mind right now, there's such place as Russia and China, isn't it? As
Yeah.
far as you're concerned.
Mm-hmm.
But have you ever seen them?
I've never been to those two places.
Right.
No.
But notice that in your mind, you're pretty much almost certain they exist. How is that? How can you be pretty certain of something that you have no idea of? And I'm saying that to make a point.
Yeah.
This is how our mind works. We think we know things that we don't.
True.
So, in other words, the point to make that long story
Excuse me.
short, that's what I get out of when I listen to people. I'll listen to anybody. If you've got something to say, I want to hear it. I'm not blowing it off because I never know what, what you're saying could make total sense. Just because the world labeled you a certain way, that doesn't mean anything. The world is do all kind of things.
Yeah.
So
And,
that's,
and yeah, the only way we can process it is by thinking. Well, for example, for me, I've seen maps, right? And
right,
I've been to places on a map,
right.
and they were there.
Exactly.
And so I've been to, say, like 4 pages on a map of the entire Earth, and I assume that, and there's like 60 pages, right? I assume that, okay, the other 58 or 56 pages exist because the 4 pages I've been to exist.
Yes.
So
And see, that's all part of the programming. You see a map of the United States, and you think that you saw the United States. In your mind, you think that you know, but all you saw was an image on a piece of paper. In reality, isn't that what you saw? But in your mind and in your reasoning, you saw a country.
yeah, yeah.
All right.
Like I've driven a lot in the U.S. and I've lived all over the U.S. Like I've done a cross country drive from Pensacola, Florida to Bremerton, Washington, going through Texas and up through Colorado and Northeast Oregon, that stuff, and same thing, and from the Northeast to Nebraska, where I live now, same going up to Seattle, Washington, same thing. And I mean, the maps look legitimate. Um, and every time I pick out a fishing spot, I I look at the maps first, and I go there, and it's there. Um, but it's so hard to imagine because I don't know. It just
I know what you're saying.
yeah.
But
But
it's like, what you're saying is that you see this thing, but in your mind, you picture, and like I said, it's just like what our whole conversation is like the globe.
mhm,
When you see a globe, you see a picture of a globe in your head.
yep,
It's there. If I say globe, right away, the blue marble pops in your mind,
yep,
but you've never seen it. But in your mind, you have. And saying, I think that we live this whole existence thinking that we see things that are not really there. And if you break that all the way down and keep breaking it all the way down to its finest parts, none of it it's really there.
yeah,
Because even the fishing spot that you went to that one time, that was an experience, correct? But
mhm,
right now, where is that place? You have no idea. You don't know if it's still there or not. That place right now could be totally blown off the map. But in your mind, all you have is this picture of this place. And you imagine that it's still there. But that doesn't mean that it is. And like I said, when you take those thoughts and those understandings and you go all the way down as far as you can break them, you get to the point is where nothing is there. Nothing is anywhere. There's no such thing as here. There's no such thing as there. There are no places because they're just images. They're just imaginations. The reason that you were able to travel like you did because you believed that you were going there. You saw the map, you got in the car, you believed that there was a road, and you believed that that road would take you to this destination. And that all happened because you believed that you were there. You believed that you were traveling. But in reality, you you never left us there, and there is no spot because like I said, once you remove time and space, there is no place. You didn't go any place because, man, this is the hard, like I said, it's the hardest thing to think about because who thinks about time and space not existing? How many people do that? How many people do you know sit around and think about there's no such thing as time and space?
Well,
Because when, go
sometimes
ahead.
I have about time not existing. For
Right,
example, I always tell my daughter time is just a measurement that we created.
but but think about it. Put space with that.
Hmm.
Imagine time and space not existing. Now you just closed off all the dimensions of physicality.
It's a lot harder to imagine.
Yes, it's very difficult. But like I said, that's the programming. See, the reason it's hard because we've been programmed out of. In other words, what I'm saying is time and space is programmed into us. It's not really there, but we're taught it's there. That's why as soon as you were born, you were automatically, as soon as you came out of the womb, you were automatically started to be indoctrinated with time and space. You saw the clocks. People do things at a certain time. You start going to certain places. So your mind starts adapting to this reality that's not, really a reality.
But
Yeah.
how do objects know how to grow? Like for example, a seed into a tree or a baby into a adult. S- Like
Well, see, now, okay, that is part of creation because that's something that man didn't do. See, man didn't invent plants and crops and reproduction. That's part of the creation. That's the consciousness creator that did that. Just like the every all of the physicality. It was all created by the creator, the whole nature thing. In other words, that experience was created.
Okay.
See, a plant growing is an experience.
I'll have to take some uh, thoughts on this. Thank you for stopping by Antarctic Expedition. Take it easy. You should come on too one day and talk. I've seen some of your videos. It's reached 2 hours and 5 minutes. James, might be a good time to call it. Um,
Sure.
but I'll definitely be watching your videos, and you've got some stimulating thoughts, that's for sure.
Yeah, I hear you. No, I appreciate the time. And like I said, most of it and a lot of it, what I said, believe me, I confused myself way more than I had you. So,
No, it's good that someone's thinking about these, because then we can actually, like, I can actually think about it because I know I'm not going to think about it on my own, right?
I understand.
I've got to hear it from somebody. Then I start thinking about it that way. And I think, as our free consciousness grows, uh, we're going to need to start passing thoughts to each other so we can realize how connected we are rather than these disconnected beings or entities that we seem to be.
Well, before you go, that's one thing that you don't really have to make an effort of because think about it. We had this conversation today. Did we know that that was going to happen yesterday?
No.
No. So we didn't really have to plan it. Notice how it just happens.
Mm-hmm.
See, things just happen. You don't really have to concern yourself with planning it or making sure. Consciousness has a way of working itself out. The more you let, in other words, the more we let consciousness happen, the more it will happen. In other words, the more we can get out of its way and let it do its thing.
I like
All
that.
right. So with that, I'm hold you up anymore.
All right. Thank you very much for
All right,
stopping
buddy.
by.
All right. It was a pleasure meeting you. I'll talk to you later.
Same here. See ya.
Okay.